This is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
I love where I live. I love where I live, and I don't want to move. I want to stay right here.
Hundreds of residents wanted to stay in Venice's low-income Grove Terrace housing project, but in 2009 it was demolished. The plan was to replace it with a two-phase project, affordable housing for seniors and young families. While the first phase for seniors was built, the second phase still hasn't broken ground as the city awaits federal dollars to get to work. What's being done to house the working-class community? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Conan. Welcome to ABC 7 at 7. We'll have more on affordable housing in Venice coming up, but first, our top 7 stories at 7. It was one of the most gruesome and heartbreaking murders in Sarasota history. In 2004, 11-year-old Carly Bruscia was kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered. It made headlines across the country, and now the man who was sentenced to death could have that sentence overturned. The kidnapping was caught on surveillance cameras. Joseph Smith kidnapping Bruscia from Evie's Car Wash on Bee Ridge Road. At the time, only 10 of the 12 jurors voted to put him to death. Now, under a new death penalty sentencing law in Florida, jurors must reach a unanimous verdict to sentence him to death. Defense attorneys say the state is facing an uphill battle.
If one person holds out, if one person disagrees with the prosecutor's argument for death penalty, he won't get the death penalty.
They're going to have to do just the sentencing portion of the case by itself without ever showing the guilt phase to the jury.
The new sentencing hearing could begin in 9 months. Carly Bruscia's mother, Susan Sherpin, died in April of a heroin overdose. Bayfront 2020 is a plan to transform 42 acres of the city land across Sarasota's Bayfront, and today those behind the effort are celebrating a major milestone. After 3 years of work, a master plan is coming together, and now an open call is being made for design teams from around the world. They will submit plans for what to do with the land stretching from Boulevard of the Arts to Centennial Park just past 10th Street. 8 weeks from now, a new team will be selected.
We are seeking across the country and across the world the most talented professional who has experience in these types of community projects to bring a vision. And during that process of working on their plan, they will go out to the community and people's interests will be considered.
The winning team will have 9 months to finalize its vision for the future of Sarasota's Bayfront. City commissioners are moving forward with plans to renovate the Bobby Jones Golf Course. A group was formed last year to make a recommendation, and it's preparing to present the plan for final approval.
We need new drainage, we need new irrigation. He's going to look at each and every hole and try to determine if could be some length added or if there's better bunker placement.
City commissioners are planning to provide $14 million for the work. They will consider the recommendations at a meeting in August. Sarasota Bradenton International Airport is trying to keep up with the growth at other regional airports by adding more seasonal flights. While low-fare carriers like Frontier and Allegiant are expanding operations at airports like Punta Gorda, Sarasota isn't seeing many changes from carriers like Delta, American, and United. Airport CEO Rick Piccolo says the number of flights are nearly cut in half during the summer. He is now working to generate more travel during the slow season. Now to the city of Venice, where police are investigating allegations of harassment at the fishing pier. An email sent to the city alleges some fishermen have been acting inappropriately at the pier late in the evening. While police are investigating, they say there is no evidence to substantiate the claims. The pier is open 24 hours a day, but the city says if problems continue, those hours could be restricted.
We have received some suggestions to close the pier, but honestly, what I'd like to do is address those issues, those disturbances, those threats, those complaints, and I'd like to fix that behavior so that the pier can remain open for the people that truly want to enjoy it.
It would be up to the city council to restrict the hours. However, members are on the summer break until mid-August. An update now on the Manatee County shoe store robbery. Last week, surveillance video shows a man robbing the Payless shoe store last Wednesday on Cortez Road in Bradenton. Deputies say the robber claimed he was armed, demanded money from an employee, then took off. The employee was not hurt. If you recognize the suspect, call Manatee County Crime Stoppers at the number on your screen. Bradenton police are working to repair one of their boats after it sank. It sank during heavy rain at the Twin Dolphin Marina yesterday. Within hours, police dive teams helped raise it to the surface using flotation bags. Repair work is already underway.
So they were able to tow the boat to the boat ramp in Palmetto, get it out, put it on the trailer. What they know so far is this morning they've got it down to the maintenance, the marine shop that works on our boat for us, and they're going to have to obviously, take the motors apart and assess the damage and figure out what went wrong.
Police hope to use the boat working again soon once they figure out why it sank. And Steve, the rain has been so heavy, these kinds of things happen.
They certainly do, and if you are out and about and get stuck in these rainstorms, you really need to have the Suncoast Weather app. Search for Suncoast WX on the app stores. You can look at live radar, see our latest forecast, so when the weather changes suddenly, you'll be prepared. Well, we did have a lot of storms along the area today. You're going to see them billowing up in this visual satellite image from our new GOES 16 satellite. Look at the structure of those billowing thunderstorms, just casting a shadow across the area. And this is what was falling from those clouds, rainfall and thunderstorms that have diminished in the last few hours. Boy, there was a lot of lightning with this one. The app would have been handy to track these storms earlier today, but I think we're going to see them diminish for the rest of this evening. Currently at the airport, 82 degrees, our dew point is 73, humidity 74%, and we have an east wind blowing at 5 miles an hour. Temperatures got up to 89 for a high today. Last night's low 76, which is within a degree of normal for this time of year. Record high was 96, set back in 1976. Across our viewing area, temperatures warm as 87 at Longboat Key, but because of the rain cooling in the interior, that's why out in Highlands County, Sebring and Lake Placid only in the mid to upper 70s, while the rest of the area we're seeing temperatures in the 80s. But here's a high-resolution futurecast that takes us through the night. The storms are gone, it'll be fair, but look what happens offshore about dawn. More storms that may come in tomorrow. Temperatures overnight pretty much cooling off into the mid and upper 70s. I'm sorry. I wish it were the 60s. It'd feel really good.
No, 70s is fine.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And still to come, 400 low-income Venice residents forced out of their apartments. It happened nearly a decade ago. And while they were promised a new housing project would be built, the only thing that came was a 65 and up senior community. What went wrong? We'll show you when we return.
I took my first handful of pills, and that's when all my priorities seemed to change.
He would ask to use the bathroom in other people's homes.
He just assumed that they would have medication.
He'd go in their medicine cabinets and steal prescription drugs.
I wish I knew really what these prescription pills were.
We were so naive about the whole drug thing.
These are all synthetic forms of heroin.
Keep your medication locked up because you'll never notice that a pill is gone.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
Call to see if you qualify to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan right now. At Humana, we believe great things are ahead of you when you start with healthy. And part of staying healthy means choosing the right Medicare plan. Humana can help. With Original Medicare, you're covered for hospital stays and doctor office visits when you're sick, but keep in mind you'll have to pay a deductible for each. A Medicare supplement plan can cover your deductibles and coinsurance, but you may pay higher premiums than you do with other plans. And prescription drug coverage isn't included. But with an all-in-one Humana Medicare Advantage plan, you could get all that coverage plus Part D prescription drug benefits, all for an affordable monthly plan premium, and in some areas, no plan premium. It's all described in this free book and DVD. Call for yours and discover how an all-in-one Medicare Advantage plan from Humana could save you money. Call 1-800-558-8779.
This is an important medical announcement. Bard IVC filters have been linked to punctured veins and problems with migration. Anyone who's received a Bard IVC filter must receive medical monitoring and may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you have the Bard Recovery G2 or G2 Express filter, you are in a class of patients who should be compensated for some expenses. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. This call is confidential, there's no cost, and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to people who should have been warned about the risks of the Bard IVC filters. Call the IVC Filter hotline if you or a loved one has received an IVC filter and experienced a vein puncture or required medical monitoring. You must call now.
Call 800-329-3089. 800-329-3089.
The official Suncoast Hurricane Guide from ABC7. Download yours today.
We talk all the time about the lack of affordable housing on the Suncoast. Tonight, a story about one community's long and frustrating attempt to do something about it. The story begins with Venice's attempt to replace its old and crumbling public housing. And Christopher Brantley picks up the story from there. Christopher.
Absolutely. And Alan, those buildings were falling apart, and eventually they had to go. And when the residents had to leave, they were told another complex would be built in its place. But 8 years later, half of the project hasn't even begun. Today, the Venetian Walk community sits on the old Grove Terrace property. This is where the less fortunate of Venice lived for 30 years or more.
I love where I live. I love where I live, and I don't want to move. I want to stay right here.
When we first met Mary Smith in 2006, she was 74 years old, filling out job applications, worried where she was going to move.
Yeah, I need groceries in the house. I don't have a quarter left out of my check.
Her Social Security check was only $500 a month. When her home of 30 years was torn down, she and the 400 others who lived here were given vouchers to go live elsewhere until their homes would be rebuilt. In 2014, Mary moved back into public housing, and today she lives here at Venetian Walk. This is what was built to replace the old Grove Terrace. But of the 400 people who lived in Grove Terrace, only the folks 65 and up were able to move back. That's because the project was split into 2 phases, the first for seniors, the second for young families. But it's the families project that was never completed.
We're in the process of obtaining funding for Venetian Walk Phase 2, which will be a 52-unit building of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments, and it will be for any age.
We wanted to find out who is ultimately responsible for the property. Hi, Brian. This is Christopher Brantley from ABC7 News in Sarasota, Florida. How are you doing? We contacted the Department of Housing and Urban Development in Washington, D.C. They told us the National HUD organization does not normally own pieces of land. They suggested the property is owned by the local Housing Development Board, but the project may be subsidized by HUD. The project's funding has been hanging in the balance for years. It works off a tax credit system. Venice has been applying for a 9% tax credit bond for $11 million. However, 113 other projects around the area have also been applying for that same money.
Only about 10 or 11 of them actually got those 9% credits, and we weren't one. That's happened 3 years in a row so far.
No one seems to be able to say with any certainty why Venice keeps getting skipped over for this bond. And the issue gets even more complex because every year Venice gets denied, the city loses money towards the project.
2 years ago, because we didn't start building the project, some of the money that was committed to this project is being clawed back at the rate of $130,000 a year.
For its part, the city has moved money around in next year's budget to go towards picking up the money that it has lost. If too much goes, the project could never happen. While the government's debate about who gets the money, only a few hundred feet away from where this affordable housing complex is to be built is a homeless camp underneath the Venice Avenue Bridge. A stark reminder how important the need is for affordable housing. Of Housing and Urban Development in Washington suggested we contact its Miami field office. And we spoke by phone to someone there who sent us a lengthy email explaining in part that the Venice Housing Authority is the group that is responsible ultimately for the property.
All right, we're going to dig into this, but do we really do affordable housing in this country by lottery? We'll discuss it when we take it to the trapezoid.
Are you Goodwill?
Yes, because when I donate
or shop at Goodwill,
I am creating a job.
I am Goodwill, yeah.
So you've decided to go to college. That's cool. So pop quiz. Which is a better way to earn your degree? Commute to college and fill your gas tank, get stuck in traffic, drive in bad weather, try to find a parking space, walk a half mile to class, or Learn online at Independence University. In the park on a bench, on the beach on a towel, or on your couch with your kid, your campus is wherever you want it to be. You don't go to college. College goes to you. That's independence. That's Independence University. You schedule classes around your schedule, and all your supplies, including a brand new laptop and tablet, are included with tuition. At Independence U, you'll learn from professional instructors with real work experience. You'll get personal support in school and employment assistance when you graduate. Get your degree, but keep your life. That's independence. That's Independence University. So if you're really smart, you'd call now.
Call 1-800-319-0237.
Independence U, for an independent you.
Call 1-800-319-0237.
Once you get atrial fibrillation, you need to have a very close relationship with your primary doctor. Prevention is the whole ball game here, because once you have a stroke, you can't undo it. A year without stroke, it's a year that you can enjoy doing the things that you've worked all your life to finally get to do. You took care of yourself. You did what is necessary for you to be around one more year. And then next year, we'll celebrate one more year without a stroke.
Watch ABC7 wherever you are. Just search ABC7 on your streaming device to keep up with the Suncoast from the comfort of your couch. Download ABC7 now to watch us on TV anytime you want. ABC7, we're here for you wherever you are.
Welcome back. Sometimes you just have to marvel at the federal bureaucracy. When the old Grove Terrace housing project was torn down, the plan was to replace it with two phases, one for seniors, the other for families. Today, Venetian Walk is home for low-income residents ages 65 and up, but the federal government never came through with the tax credits to build phase 2. It's a strange, bizarre lottery system, and Venice has yet to come up with the winning ticket. And joining us for more on the yet-to-be-built project is Len Bramble, Venice's Assistant City Manager, and Christopher Brantley, our own South County reporter for ABC7. Len, tell me if I'm wrong by saying this is just a strange, bizarre way to build public housing in this country, a lottery system?
It certainly seems bizarre and is very frustrating. It'd be far easier if we had lots of extra money locally to build this, but we don't. So we compete for those monies.
Is that the problem, that you're competing against communities not only around Florida but around the entire country, and there's a limited amount of money for this kind of project?
Short and simple, yes.
But even eventually, when you're dealing with a finite or managed number of communities that need this money, usually your number comes up. How does the city explain, or what has the city asked the federal government in terms of this incredibly long delay?
I'm sure we've expressed our frustration with it and our strong desire to still build this project that we all think is exceedingly viable and needed for the community.
And it's important to point out that every year the city doesn't get their ticket called for the lottery, they lose money.
Explain that.
So basically they have set aside, the city has set aside money to kick over their portion of this project, and it's kind of a guarantee, a down payment, if you will, onto the project's $11 million. Every year that goes by that they lose this lottery, about $130,000 is kicked back of that money.
Why?
That would be the question everybody would like to have answered. And I would largely imagine it's because they are not following through with the project. But it's not because Venice doesn't want to follow through. They keep trying to follow through.
And we should note that we've asked the Venice Housing organization to take part in this broadcast tonight. They were unable to do that. But from the city's point of view, what has been the recourse? What can the city do? Who can the city talk to in Washington to try to push this along?
Well, I feel confident our mayor and council have been doing a lot of those communications already. But I think the fact is that these are very competitive monies that that our number just has simply not come up in this lottery.
Is this, communities, whether you're a city, town, or anything like that, you get a certain amount of money from the federal government. Is this a similar situation to other types of federal monies that the city of Venice often tries to get, that it's a lottery for it?
It's not like that for every source of monies, whether it be federal or state, but for monies for this sort of project, for this sort of category and use, yes, it's very competitive, and they have a lottery in place as part of their procedures.
Christopher, tell me about your experience of talking to the people who thought that they were going to be moving into this new development, in terms of what are they thinking right now?
Well, it's interesting because we can go back through our archives to 2005, 2006, and which is part of what we had in the story. People who, when they were told they had to go, were, crushed. It's really hard to find people who are still in our area that lived there before. And the reason that is because when they were asked to go, they were given, some subsidies to go and live elsewhere. But largely the housing that they were supposed to come back to, at least the younger people, wasn't there. And so as I understand it, a lot of those people have gone to different communities.
Okay, we are just getting started with this conversation, and we will pick it up right after we check the weather.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get debt-free now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-628-1251, 800-628-1251.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local Boys and Girls Clubs. Great futures start here.
For more than 100 years, American Humane Association has been teaching kids to be kind to animals. Those in our homes, on the farms, on the silver screen, and wildlife conservation, caring for the world's vanishing creatures. But we can't do it alone. Visit kindness100.org to find ways to teach kids how they can make a more caring, compassionate, and humane world for all of us.
All hands on deck. What's up? I want to point out 3 tips for using the home computer more safely. Point away.
First, stop. Make sure your software is up to date and that you've password protected your computer's login and Wi-Fi connection.
Next, think before visiting a site, opening attachments, or clicking on links.
Then connect, knowing you're helping make the web safer for you
and for everyone. Make Stop, Think, Connect part of your daily online routine.
Our discussion of the delay of affordable housing continues in Venice. And let me ask you this, in terms of the current need, what are you seeing in terms of the population that is there and is needing this new kind of affordable housing?
Our community, just like any other community, when you live and work there every day, you see folks in the community, largely hidden during the day, but visible other times, that need housing like this. Certainly our police department and folks like that deal with these folks on a more routine basis are most familiar with that, but they're there. They're in our community and in every community.
I think, excuse me, largely people don't think of Venice and think of, perhaps a low income or homeless people living there, but like you said, Len, they are there. They absolutely are there. One of the things that actually prompted this story was the tail end of the story, where you saw, a homeless camp right underneath the Venice Avenue Bridge, which I cannot stress enough, is only a few hundred feet from where this development is supposed to be built. They are absolutely there. They may not be out during the day when, you know, tourists are there and you may not see them as much. But if you go down to downtown Venice at night, you'll see them.
I just want to take a moment to point out we were going to update our weather forecast right now, but we're having just a little bit of technical problems, and we will have an update on the forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. So let's continue with our discussion in terms of the development in terms of low-income housing in Venice. I mean, communities around the Suncoast and around Florida are having the same kind of problem. And you're losing money every year it comes around because of the situation. How long can this current situation last?
I don't know if I can answer that. Anybody can. As long as there's a need, I think there are folks like the city and the Venice Housing Authority and others, they're going to work towards solutions to respond to those needs, no matter how the stars may line up and it come together.
This is kind of a political question, which I don't know if you can answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is the lack of the money coming from Washington due to the fact that really for the last 2 decades, the amount of money going to HUD has been steadily decreasing?
I'm told that it has been steadily decreasing, so I think you're correct.
And Christopher, that the money from Washington may be steadily decreasing, but that doesn't mean that the need for this kind of housing is.
No, and you could argue that it maybe is even going up in some places. And you know, it's interesting that we've talked about the, you know, you said every year that this goes by, we lose money in Venice to go to this project, but the city of Venice just had their budget meetings in which, and Len, you could maybe talk about this a little bit with a little bit more authority, but the city was actually moving money around to be able to continue making, what is that $600,000 that they need?
$550,000, and half of which is in our current fiscal year budget. And I feel confident the mayor and council will be discussing the other half of that $550,000 when they reconvene August 22nd.
Because there are 2 options here. Either you wait for the federal money to come, or the city comes up with its own money to go ahead with this project. But I would imagine, that, especially in these budgetary times, that that's a difficult thing to do.
It is. Short and simple, it's very difficult to do. There's a lot of competition for all the monies for a variety of services and needs.
And we have a lot of different foundations that are wonderful in Venice, but as you said, everybody wants some money for some project somewhere.
Okay. We will pick up this discussion right after we take a break. Stay with us.
Call to see if you qualify to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan right now. At Humana, we believe great things are ahead of you when you start with healthy. And part of staying healthy means choosing the right Medicare plan. Humana can help. With Original Medicare, you're covered for hospital stays and doctor office visits when you're sick, but keep in mind you'll have to pay a deductible for each. A Medicare supplement plan can cover your deductibles and coinsurance, but you may pay higher premiums than you do with other plans, and prescription drug coverage isn't included. But with an all-in-one Humana Medicare Advantage plan, you could get all that coverage plus Part D prescription drug benefits, all for an affordable monthly plan premium, and in some areas, no plan premium. It's all described in this free book and DVD. Call for yours and discover how an all-in-one Medicare Advantage plan from Humana could save you money. Call 1-800-558-8779.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Since 2014, Addiction Hope and Helpline has answered calls for recovery and treatment 24/7, 365 days a year. If you're depressed, drinking, using drugs, or taking pills, call now and talk to someone who cares.
I had problems just getting to sleep, drinking and using pills every night.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Most insurance covers substance abuse. You can get back on track. Call now for hope and help with proven gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I have something to hold on to for strength. I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call 800-622-1941. 800-622-1941.
Are you a food food lover, restaurant goer, or home cook? Then check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, and helpful step-by-step videos. And you'll love the restaurant guide with direct links to your favorite Suncoast eateries. Whether you're cooking in or dining out, whet your appetite with tasty tips from Chef Judy at mysuncoast.com/dining.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the need for affordable housing in Venice. 10 years ago, a group of affordable housing units were demolished. The plan was to build 2 replacement projects, one for seniors, one for families. The one for families still has not been built. Our guests tonight are Len Bramble, Venice's Assistant City Manager, and Christopher Brantley, who reports on Venice and South Sarasota County for ABC7 News. And Len, when you put together a project like this, there are multiple sources of funding. What are some of them?
It's always easier if you only have one source, but in this case there's 7 sources, at least at the present time, to fund this project that's estimated to total about $11.6 million. They include the county, the Venice Housing Authority, the city, different other sources, a couple of which are subject to the lotteries that we've been referring to, which provide a variable that's very unsettling when it comes to the reliability of the project actually coming to fruition.
So is it safe to say that if that lottery actually happened, if the money was there tomorrow or the next day, if somebody walked in with a check and said, here's the lottery money, that project could actually begin?
I think that would go a long way towards making the project a go. I mean, certainly without that, I can't say that, but with that, I think the needs of the project are vastly diminished, and the project will likely happen.
Let me ask you this. I mean, is there anything the city can do for a contingency plan? Because after all, if you watch the news out of Washington, just about every department of the federal government is being told that it's going to be have its budget slashed, unless it's the Pentagon and a couple of other things. So I would imagine that there's going to be less money coming from housing and urban development than more. How long can this situation go on where the city is losing money as it awaits the federal funds?
That's a good question. I don't know that I can really answer that. It becomes a policy level decision as to whether or not we want to try and find some way to fund something locally that we've been unsuccessful at securing funding from other sources.
And you said that a lot of the people who were originally meant to go into this housing has moved away. But in terms of that population that needs this kind of housing in Venice, given what the economy is, where we've come, where we are right now, is that population of people who can use affordable housing growing?
Absolutely. Think about PGT, think about Tervis Tumbler, all in the industrial complex of North Venice. Just up the road from both of those major factories, Tervis Tumbler supplies has jobs for about 700 people. PGT ranges from 1,000, 1,500 to 2,000, depending on the time of the year. Right there, there's a 510 unit affordable housing complex that is proposed. The need is definitely there. That's not for senior citizens, that's for families. Those are for people middle-aged that are working and not making enough to make rent in Venice. So having this, and that's in North Venice, having this facility near the island, you have a lot of restaurants on the island, you have a lot of doctors' offices on the island. There's a lot of working class people who maybe aren't making enough to make a $1,500 to $2,000 rent in the city of Venice, because the city of Venice rent is not cheap.
Right. What about corporate partners? Given the need for basically workforce housing, are there companies up there who might be willing to help bring this about? Because after all, if you could house your employees, you have employees to work.
Yeah, that's certainly a part of the mix that if it hasn't been explored much thus far, probably ought to be. But I suspect it has been. But they're like everyone else. They're coming back from the recession, struggling with coming out of that, growth at the same time. They have budgets to create and stick with, just like we do.
Christopher, I'm going to ask you this, and this may be an unfair question. I don't know if you have an answer to this, but we have a congressman that represents that area, Tom Rooney. You know, traditionally you go to your members of Congress and ask them to basically kick, you know, the federal bureaucracy around to get things moving. Is anybody doing that?
I can't say specifically. I can say that Tom Rooney only just recently got this part of his area, you know, this place of Venice, and I believe he was at City Hall not a couple of months ago. And I'm not going to say it was for the first time, but it was the first documented time I know of that he was there. I do not know if that's something that he and the mayor had a discussion with, but I would imagine that this could be something that the mayor could sit down and say, listen, we need this.
Len, do you know if this came up?
I don't know for certain, but I can tell you that dealing with the crisis with homelessness and issues relating to that is a top priority item of our council. So far as its legislative goals and priorities. So,
let me ask you this: while these people are living under bridges and on the streets, I would imagine that it also adds to what your police department has to do in terms of keeping these streets safe. That's another cost.
It absolutely is another cost that often isn't talked about in terms of this sort of project.
So how does the police budget basically handle situations like this where this is kind of added on top of everything it has to do?
Well, it's not just police. It's folks like a public works department that has to come in and tidy up, clean up after a camp is abandoned and the folks move on to another camp. It's a continual sort of process that puts burden on the local government to keep things tidy and up to expectations of our local citizens.
You have fire and emergency services as well that would feel that burden.
Yep.
What's your impression after talking to HUD and their Miami field office in terms of, do they understand the situation in Venice and how frankly ridiculous it is that you have a project waiting for nearly a decade?
Well, I spent, excuse me, I apologize. I spent a long time on the phone yesterday with someone from HUD in Washington. And he was trying to explain how it works, that HUD subsidizes the part of the programs, and you know there are state funds that can largely come into play here. He suggested I contact the Miami field office, and they sent me a long email here. They were very helpful, I should mention. And this basically details out if the project were to go through, number one, who would largely be in control and who would largely hold the title of the land, and that would largely be Bank of America, according to HUD. It would be 99.98% of the program. But nobody could say specifically, largely because maybe they're staff members, no one could say specifically that this is outrageous or not.
One last question. How often are these lotteries held?
Every year.
When?
Len, I'll defer to you on that one.
I don't know that I can truly answer that. I think it may be in the fall, but I'm not certain.
I know it comes right before the budget time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, the future of health care coverage.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare. You may be eligible for an all-in-one Medicare plan that combines hospital, medical, and prescription drug coverage together with extra benefits that may include dental, vision, hearing aids, and much more. Some of these plans have a $0 monthly premium regardless of your income. That's right. For one low plan premium, or in some cases a $0 premium, you may be able to get coverage for your hospital visits, doctor appointments, prescription drugs, routine dental care, eyeglasses and contact lenses, hearing aids, and possibly more. Today may be the first time you've heard about this type of Medicare plan. The advisors at the Medicare.com helpline are licensed insurance agents who will explain more when you call. Call now to see if you qualify. Call the number on your screen now. Call now to see if you qualify for these benefits. You worked hard for your Medicare. Now is the time for your Medicare to work hard for you. Not affiliated with or acting on behalf of any government agency or program.
I heard about the Dotoli Cancer Center through friends of mine who had been treated here and were very pleased with the treatment.
If there is prostate cancer, we at the Dotoli Cancer Center will find it using 3D color flow Doppler ultrasound.
And that helped precisely identify where my cancer was and some additional cancers that were not found during the biopsy. I would recommend the Dotoli Cancer Center. As a group of human beings, they are unbelievably great.
Thank you.
You got a king?
Go fish!
It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Enjoy some of the best Suncoast restaurants on me. Just go to mysuncoast.com/dining, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and you can win a $50 gift card to a restaurant in our area. We'll pick a winner each week, so go on our website and sign up now.
8 years has gone by since the low-income Grove Terrace community was demolished in Venice. A housing project was built for seniors, but the second phase for families remains on hold. What will it take for it to get it built? And are there other affordable housing options on the island? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. So, Len, if you could just give our viewers an update in terms of where the city sits in terms of waiting for these federal funds to come through.
Well, it's my understanding in this latest go-around, time is critical after council reconvenes toward the end of August, because there may be a deadline looming of October 4th once again for some of these funds. So it'll be some interesting conversation amongst our city council.
I guess viewers might want to know if the city and the housing authority is doing everything it needs to do in terms of basically pushing things along with the federal government.
Yeah. All indications of that, and that's what I'm hearing. The problem is the randomness of a lottery and its play on trying to fund something with confidence.
Christopher, does the public generally in Venice, are they aware this is going on?
I'm going to make a startling admission. I didn't know this was going on until about 3 months ago. And I cover the area very heavily and talk very often with city council until the budget meeting started coming up and I started seeing this $550,000 I didn't quite recognize. I didn't even know it was going on. And I would bet you if you walk down Venice Main Street with, you know, regular citizens, they're probably not going to know. If they've been here for many years, they may have known the old Grove Terrace property, but they may know that the second phase of the property hasn't begun.
Well, we know enough to know this about the public around here. There are two things that they don't like. On one hand, they might say, it's fine that you're not getting federal money. The federal government should start spending money on things like this. On the other hand, folks around here don't like getting ripped off, and they may just be getting angry that the sense that their tax dollars are supposed to be coming back.
And you know, it's money that is set aside to go to these projects. As we said in the story, 113 different local projects are also competing for this money as well. So the money is going out. It's being spent somewhere. Just if you're in the Venice community and you're waiting for this project, it's not being spent.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic, the health care debate. Republican efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare are on hold after 4 GOP senators said that they would not support it. A new effort is now underway to repeal Obamacare without a replacement. That could create uncertainty for millions of Americans and Floridians, and we asked you what you thought about the Affordable Care Act. Damon Powers writes, it needs work, but I really don't support repealing it. It leaves too many people without coverage that truly need it. It really just needs to be fixed so that premiums aren't ridiculously expensive for some people. Jay Toriano writes, dump it completely. I'm tired of being fined for not having something I can't afford. Mo Sievers writes, it should never be repealed. Too many people that finally have insurance need that coverage, including my daughter, who was finally able to get affordable insurance for herself and has medical issues that she cannot afford without insurance. And B. Kyles writes, I think the health insurance issue with the government sticking their noses into private affairs should be left to die, hopefully a quick death. It is nothing but a socialist program that takes health insurance away from hardworking people. Well, what do you think about the affordable housing project in Venice? Half built and a decade delayed. Join tonight's conversation by visiting our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to both our guests for being here tonight. Len Bramble is the Assistant City Manager for Venice, and Christopher Brantley is the South County reporter for ABC7 News. When we return, we'll have a final look at your weather, plus a moving memorial to the Confederacy. County commissioners are changing their minds about what to do with the monument. We'll have details in our primetime headlines.
This is important news for women who were administered chemotherapy intravenously for breast cancer and then suffered permanent hair loss. The chemotherapy drug Taxotere has been linked to permanent alopecia or permanent hair loss. Some women administered the breast cancer chemotherapy drug Taxotere have suffered from permanent hair loss on scalp, eyebrows, and eyelashes. The FDA has urged doctors and the manufacturer to warn women administered Taxotere of the risk of permanent hair loss. If you or a loved one were administered chemotherapy intravenously for breast cancer and suffered permanent hair loss, you may have a right to a cash award and medical expenses. If you suffered permanent hair loss after chemotherapy for breast cancer, call the law offices of Davis & Crump at the number below right now to find out if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call the law offices of Davis & Crump right now. Our first consultation is free, and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call now. Operators are standing by.
A promise was made, a promise that hit the beaches of Normandy, a vow that captured Iwo Jima, a contract that weathered Tet, a pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq, an IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. DAV fights to keep that promise, so all veterans and their families get the benefits and support they earned. For help, visit DAV.org.
We answered the call of duty and left our homes to serve in far-off lands. Now, we answer another call, this time at home, in our own communities, to respond in times of chaos, to use our strength, our skills, and our experiences to bring hope amid devastation and destruction. Together, as a team of brothers and sisters, we're continuing our mission to make this country a little stronger and a little better each day. We are Team Rubicon.
Your primetime headlines are coming up in a moment, but right now let's get the final check on our forecast from meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
Hey, Alan, sorry to be so late. We had a really sluggish graphics computer. We got out the WD-40 and a pair of jumper cables, and I think we're working again. These are the storms that passed over Lakewood Ranch earlier today, throwing down some lightning and locally heavy rain. That's the typical pattern we're in for this time of year, and it's going to stay that way into the weekend. And these are the storms that did pop up, but at this hour they're diminishing in intensity and coverage and sort of moving into the middle part of the state. This is the pattern we get where they're forming earlier in the day here, blowing across the state, and by the end of the day they're lined up along the Atlantic coast. We've seen that for the last 2 days, and we'll probably see it again tomorrow as well. Now let's take a look at the tropics, and things are quieting down. We do have probably the last time we'll talk about this easterly wave in the middle Atlantic with only a 10% chance of developing. It's moving into the central Atlantic and probably is not going to affect anybody's weather whatsoever. And what's left of Tropical Storm Dawn is bringing some clouds and maybe a few sprinkles to the Dutch Antilles. It's gone. It's never going to be a problem again. And the Gulf and Caribbean, quiet at this time. The Pacific is a different situation. We got a Category 4 hurricane out here, Fernanda. We have also Tropical Storm Greg. We could have Tropical Storm Hillary here or here. They're going to be developing in the next few days. We could have 5 in a row out in the Pacific. Now our futurecast that takes us through tonight and tomorrow shows those storms diminishing overnight. Clear skies, more developing in the morning and blowing to the east coast by tomorrow afternoon. And then the same pattern again develops on Friday afternoon and probably Saturday and Sunday as well. It's a ridge of high pressure from the Bermuda High over top of us controlling our weather, and it's keeping that pattern in place. On the water tomorrow, east winds becoming northerly in the afternoon, 5 knots, seas 2 feet or less. It'll be smooth on bay and inland waters because the winds are so light. 89 the beach temperature, water temperature 87. UV index 11, and our forecast for tonight, the showers are gone, so just call partly cloudy skies. Our low temperature 76 with relatively calm winds. And for tomorrow, the heat index again going to be up there 101 with a few storms in the area. The high temperature 89. And our 7-day outlook shows that 40 to 50% chance of rain continues Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday, a little bit less chance, and then bringing that chance up again on Wednesday. Alan will be back with primetime headlines right after these words.
I'm Cindy Lou. I'm Susie. I'm Missy. And I'm Betty Jean. And we're the Marvelous Wonderettes. Mr. Sandman.
Experience the best girl group songs from the 50s and 60s live on stage at the Players Center July 12th through the 23rd. Call 941-365-2494 or visit us at theplayers.org. You'll fall in love with the Marvelous Wonderettes.
I'm so alone.
This is an important medical announcement. Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to uncontrollable bleeding and even death. If you've been prescribed one of these drugs and have experienced these dangerous side effects, you may be entitled to substantial compensation. Studies show that Pradaxa can cause more heart attacks than warfarin, and other countries have already issued safety warnings against this drug. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. The call is confidential, there's no cost, and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to Pradaxa victims, and thousands of Xarelto victims are filing their legal cases. Call the Drug Watch hotline if you or a loved one used Xarelto or Pradaxa and experienced uncontrollable bleeding, brain hemorrhage, or even death. You must call now.
Call 800-793-6055. 800-793-6055.
Because my parents told me I have to be responsible.
Because my first coach told me, you can do this.
Because my boss showed me how to do a good job.
Because my teacher helped me see the choices.
I'm swimming faster than I ever dreamed.
I am a valuable employee.
I discovered that I could work as an artist.
I will be whatever I want to be.
Youth with disabilities should grow up expecting to work and succeed. For more information, visit whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
ABC7, My Suncoast News. We're here for you. Watch My Suncoast News wherever you are. On our live stream, on our newly redesigned MySuncoast.com, and a brand new ABC7 My Suncoast app, powered by the Eye Associates, providing sight for life, featuring traffic maps and live radar, and dining with recipes in all the hottest Suncoast restaurants. Visit MySuncoast.com and click on the mobile tab to download the ABC7 My Suncoast app for iOS and Android.
Now for your primetime headlines. President Donald Trump says he wants senators to stay in Washington into their August recess and hash out a health care deal. After hosting Republican senators for a White House lunch, the president's push to repeal and replace Obamacare still faces long odds on Capitol Hill. ABC's Megan Hughes has more from Washington.
President Donald Trump making the hard sell.
Any senator who votes against starting debate is really telling America that you're fine with Obamacare.
Trying to persuade all Republican senators at a White House lunch to stay into their August recess to get to a deal.
The people of this country need more than a repeal. They need a repeal and a replace. And we were very, very close.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell grappling with the divided Republican Party, but vowing to push forward.
Next week, we'll be voting on the motion to proceed.
But will it be a straight repeal of Obamacare or include a replacement plan? That's unclear.
We could have a vote on either.
Taking no chances, Affordable Care Act policyholders, doctors, nurses, Medicaid recipients, and others rallying against repeal, occupying offices and targeting GOP lawmakers. Democrats pouncing on the president's Tuesday remarks.
We're probably in that position where we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it.
Just as they blamed President Obama when he was in charge, they're going to blame President Trump when he was in charge.
The president is hitting his 6-month anniversary in office with no major legislative wins. Some in the White House are hoping, if not health care, tax reform could provide that opportunity. Megan Hughes, ABC News, Washington.
New tonight, the Congressional Budget Office is releasing its report for the impact of repealing Obamacare without a replacement. It estimates it would leave 32 million more Americans without insurance and would be a double premiums over the next decade. An updated version of the 2015 bill to repeal Obamacare is fast-tracked to reach the Senate floor early next week. It will likely fail, with 3 Republicans already saying they will not support the measure. We're learning more about a police shooting in Minneapolis on Saturday night. Justine Damon was fatally shot by an officer after calling 911 to report an assault in the alley behind her house. The officers had body cameras, but they were turned off. Damon had moved to the U.S. from Australia. Now the Prime Minister is demanding answers.
How can a woman out in the street in her pajamas seeking assistance from the police be shot like that? It is a shocking killing.
Officer Muhammad Noor shot Damon An independent agency is investigating. Noor has declined to be interviewed. Here in Florida, a 2-year-old law requiring women to wait 24 hours for an abortion is being challenged in court. A Tallahassee judge is giving the state 60 days to prepare its defense of the measure. The judge chastised the Deputy Solicitor General for failing to build her case more than 5 months after the Florida Supreme Court put the law on hold. Civil liberties groups are asking the judge to strike down the law once and for all.
It's harmful to women, particularly to low-income women who have to make this additional trip to the doctor, take more time off work, arrange and pay for childcare and travel. It is a very difficult job to try to justify such an insulting law.
Supporters of the law say waiting an extra day for an abortion is more than reasonable. New developments on another controversial issue here in Florida, a Confederate monument outside the Hillsborough County Courthouse. Today, county commissioners voted 4-2 to move the monument to a cemetery. Last month, the city of Orlando made a similar decision, moving a Confederate statue from a city-owned park to a cemetery. Now to Miami, where a 10-year-old boy is dead after he came into contact with the deadly synthetic opioid fentanyl. Alton Banks died last month after visiting a neighborhood pool with friends. Sometime between the pool visit and the 2-block walk home, he came in contact with the opioid. Neighbors say he became sick and died hours later.
At this point, we have every reason to believe that their preliminary findings are that it was a mixture of heroin and fentanyl that killed this little boy. We don't know where he got it.
Banks lived in Overtown, a neighborhood in Miami, an epicenter for Florida's opioid epidemic. Miami is getting assistance with another issue, the discharge of wastewater into the ocean. The Environmental Protection Agency is considering using $25 million in federal funds to help the city secure additional public and private financing. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt is highlighting water projects as an example of President Trump's commitment to infrastructure. 9 other states could also receive funds. The EPA is not saying when the funds will be allocated. An update on that sinkhole that swallowed 2 homes in Land O'Lakes just north of Tampa. The hole is getting wider as its banks collapse because there's no support for the sandy soil as it dries out. It is now 235 feet. That's about 10 feet wider than several days ago. It remains 50 feet deep. 17 water samples tested positive for coliform, but the county plans to retest it. Nothing toxic was released into the air. The hole opened up last Friday. No one was injured. That's all the time we have. I'm Alan Cohn. Good night.